Hi, everybody. This is Ray, and welcome to my week 2 multimedia discussion from Taylor to Follett. Today, we'll go over a few of the most interesting excerpts, at least for me, from this week's reading. So, I'll touch on a few quick excerpts from Frederick Taylor, Max Weber, Leonard White, Mary Parker Follett, of course, and a practical application towards the end. So I'll start with Frederick Taylor. His ideas centered around scientific management were definitely interesting, and I'm sure we could all probably talk about it at great lengths. But one quote that stood out to me was this, and this quote is from our classics book on page 58, and it's actually the very last sentence of that article. And it goes, "Every man on the team obeys the signals or orders of the coach and obeys them at once when the coach gives those orders, that is, without the intimate cooperation between all members of the team and the management, which is characteristic of scientific management." And one of the big things that I had gotten from kind of the introduction study to Frederick Taylor was that, not only did he focus on the minutia of each process to make sure that it was efficient, but he also kind of laid out this concept that employees or laborers were almost like a cog to this big machine. You're kind of just doing your best, in essence, to lubricate these cogs so that they could work smoothly and they could work faster. And so for me, this quote kind of, in essence, had kind of captured that that idea that every man kind of just goes with what is ordered to them, and the coach gives those orders, and there's this intimate cooperation between all members of the team and management. So this to me really did stand out. So next slide is Max Weber. And the quote that I had pulled from him was, of course, under the 6 Principles of Bureaucracy on page 62. It is Roman numeral bullet number 2. And he talks about the principles of office hierarchy, this idea of, ordered system of super and subordination with lower, offices under higher offices, kind of really nailing down kind of this ordered tiered system of management. So we essentially went from Frederick Taylor's scientific management, essentially having an ordered set of rules to go by, improving efficiencies, looking at your workers and your laborers as cogs, in this machine. And then you have Max Weber kind of expanding on the 6 principles of bureaucracy and honing in on the idea of hierarchy. Again, it's to me under the same vein of kind of making sure that everything had its place. The idea that, everybody had to report to somebody above them, which in essence at the time that it was written, of course, looking back, a lot of what Weber had said really did make sense. But I kind of wanted to pick this specific excerpt out because further on in the next articles, it really does kind of hold in high contrast to, say, Mary Parker Follett's ideas of management. Next up is Leonard White, and I know we only had the preface, the introduction to his book, which is on page 68 of our text. He did list out some really interesting assumptions that he used in writing his book, and one of the ones that I found most interesting was the study of administration should start from the base of management rather than the foundation of law, which in a way kind of took this left turn from what we had just been reading about from Frederick Taylor and from Weber, in the sense that it almost seemed very scientific, very black and white. Management, had to have its rules, had to have its order, it had to have this hierarchy. And with Leonard White's, preface in this book, it's kind of taking a look at it from a slightly different angle. Administration should start from management rather than law. And so this is kind of where I start to see, hey, here's the turn of how management, even administration and the study of administration starts to take a turn. And of course, we turn our attention to Mary Parker Follett. Her reading was definitely, to me, probably the one that struck a chord the most. And of course, this is an excerpt from the Giving Order that we had as a reading this past week. And there's so many excerpts from this article that really stood out, but one that stood out to me was here on the screen. What happens to man in a man when an order is given in a disagreeable manner? The man addressed feels that his self-respect is attacked, that one of his innermost sanctuaries is invaded. He loses his temper, becomes sullen, or is on the defensive. He begins thinking of his rights, which is a fatal attitude for any of us. And to me, reading Mary Parker Follett just felt like a breath of fresh air. We traveled from this scientific management to bureaucracy to this very, ordered, hierarchy-based types of management to a very holistic, humanistic, almost psychological shift on management, where it was really more people-centered, people-centric type of management, a more collaborative approach to management. It was really, really great getting to read her perspective on it, because to me it resonates the most with how I currently manage the team, which goes to kind of the practical application of the type of management that I've read, in the past couple of weeks, specifically maybe Mary Parker Follett's approach. So do I think that approach works? For me, I think of all of the different types and approaches of management that we've read thus far, Mary Parker Follett's probably resonates to me the best. And it's because at the City of Monrovia, which is pictured here, we have a very human-focused approach to management. We have 4 core values, and every employee, including upper management, directors, even our own city manager, everybody gets evaluated on these 4 core values, which are humble, hungry, loyal, and smart. And the most important of which is humility, which to me means this collaborative approach on work. It means that your supervisors and your directors are approachable. It means that if you have an idea for how to do something better, it doesn't necessarily have to be a top-down approach. It could be an entry-level staff that comes up with a more efficient way of doing things. So instead of this like unity of command or everything has to come from a superior, it is really a collaborative approach to management, which to me, it kind of rings true to what Mary Parker Follett had discussed in our reading this week. So that is kind of the practical approach that I've seen as I was reading the articles this week. And if you guys would like to discuss any of kind of the core values that the city operates on or that I get evaluated on, please feel free to reach out. This week's readings were interesting to say the least. It felt like we were all on a journey through time, through kind of these ideas of management being developed, kind of changing and shifting. I mean, in the context in which they were all written. So looking forward to everybody's multimedia posts this week, and thank you so much for listening.